Welcome to the CEN show, the voice of the world community. I am your host, Rasaki Maskani, and I'd like to introduce the panel. We have Professor Amin Ra, Brother Mashinda, Brother Hembrick, and Brother E here this evening, and we may have some other people chiming in a little bit later. So our topic this evening is spiritual awareness versus religious belief. So the guest tonight is Brother DX. He's one of our newest members of our team on the communityeducationnetwork.com. So Brother DX has been on twice, and he's very interesting and has very good information. I enjoy having him on, and I'm happy that he's a part of our team. So Brother DX, welcome, and please begin your presentation.
All right, thank you so much, Hotep. To everyone, I'd like to give thanks and praise to the Most High, to the energy and forces of spirit that guide us and that lead us each and every day. I'm just going to get started with this because I don't want to prolong it too long, but it is a very intriguing concept and, discussion we're going to have tonight. So I'm going to start off first with the basis of what religion is and a brief definition of what religion is. And then I'll do a brief definition of spirituality, and then I'll get into the details. Religion is a set of organized beliefs, practices, and systems that most often relate to the belief and worship of a controlling force, such as a personal God or other supernatural being. Spirituality and spiritual awareness is the acknowledgement of inner self and the acknowledgement of things around you that you become aware of on a subconscious level, and you relate that subconscious level to spirit. All right, so when it comes to religion basically takes the focus off of yourself and personal responsibility and places it on a deity. When things go good, you give reference to a God like Buddha or Jesus, Muhammad, etc. When things are perceived to be bad, it's the devil or a demon or some outside force that causes you to have a bad perception about what's going on in your life. The act of putting emphasis on a being outside of oneself separates the subconscious from being a supreme being or being godly in your way of action and being responsible for what your hands do or what your conscious thought is projecting onto other people or onto the situation. Religions such as Christianity, Islam, Judaism, all condemn people for not believing what they believe. Christians call people sinners and heathens. Muslims call people infidels. Jews call people, or the non-believers, Gentiles. The moral servitude of love and respect for humanity has brought all of the civilizations under hypocrisy, where religious practices have leaders that dictate the rules and regulations of the people through fear and even brutal domination. One example would be exactly where we live right now in America, how the slave owners conducted themselves and implemented their thoughts and their ideology on a people that were sovereign, that were good. Even the natives that were here had their own way of being in what we would call spiritual beliefs, and their practices are how they related themselves to nature in a way that was harmony, that was peaceful, and that was good with the universe itself. When you had other people come in as settlers or colonists that decided that what they were doing was not right, that their information or their way of being was superior over another people. So with spiritual awareness, it is the acknowledgement of self, where man should know thyself, being responsible for your actions, words, and deeds is not placed on an outside entity, but an inner guide that is connected to all existence. morals, and integrity is a commonplace for human beings, even as children. Basic ideals of humanity is embedded into our being. Not killing, not stealing, not raping, not pillaging, being jealous to the point that you will cause detriment or harm to another. When we speak of spiritual awareness, this is the connection with spirit. It is connection with nature. It is the universal concept of being. To acknowledge that all is God as spirit and respect the natural order of things as they exist without bias, influence, or manipulation. In other words, connecting the internal love of ancestors that are related to you. When you relate to things that are connected to you directly, you are considered spiritual. When you connect to things outside of yourself and you connect with a deity that has nothing to do with you, doesn't look like you, and ironically, all of the religions on the planet, if you look at Hinduism, the Krishna looks like an Indian. The Buddha, even though he's black, looks like a Chinese. The Christians, of course, have Jesus that looks European like them. But when you have a deity that looks like you, they would consider that bad. All religions have these deities. So when you deal with indigenous people, their deities become wicked. They become taboo. They become the voodoo. Even how long that we have been on the planet as humans for over millions of years. And we've only recently, within the last 400 years on this planet, 2,000 years as a whole, being conceived under a particular ideology that everyone must follow and be, or you'll be considered bad, or you'll be considered an outcast. Why is that? Because the ones who are in control are the ones that's been doing exactly what they tell you not to do. The Quran, for example, was written in 711 AD. The King James Version of the Bible was written in 1611. So humans, by them being placed on the planet for so many years, have now adopted cultures along with traditions that promote confusion, colonial domination, and all over these world religions have been used to dominate people and to tell them that what they're doing is wrong and what the worship of what the colonists want is what's right. When indigenous people burn candles or incense or give gratitude to the ancestors in one way or another, whether it's a cipher being built when you had the natives and the indigenous people having ciphers, the drums being played, you had the shaman in the middle dancing, people clapping, doing that. That is a spiritual practice that has been instituted into what we would call a church. So you had the same energy in the church where people are clapping their hands, you shouting, you got the drums playing, then you have the person who is considered the prophet or the deacons and the sisters of the church or whoever that would dance around, they pass out, wake up and start prophesying to people. It's the same thing we was doing in Africa and also here on this continent as natives when we had the shaman dancing in the middle. He passed out or whatever, come forward, bring forth the prophecy. It's the same thing. Even in church, when people say, oh, they're speaking in tongues, that's a connection to your ancestor of what your bloodline says and what your bloodline native tongue is. That's not a Holy Spirit coming on you. The Spirit is all one. The Spirit is what it is. That is a form of spirituality. But they have taken it and turned it into something outside of yourself so that you're being almost saying like you're possessed or something. Even if you look at Ifa, they do the same thing. They beat on the drums. They have a shaman there and the person dance. They go into a trance. Same thing with the music. You dancing, you in a circle, in a cipher, you dance, you go into a trance, you feeling good about the rhythm and the music, and you release certain things and certain energy and vibrations. That's spiritual. That's something that's internally within us. It has nothing to do with an institution or religion or what they categorize us as a people. So moving forward, the ability to go within in a sense of meditation and calling out other entities to help. Like when you go within, That would be considered meditation. You're going within. You're taking time out in silence. You're meditating on a particular thing. You're taking some time out to meditate, to breathe, to think, or internally, and allowing spirit and the universe to move around you, as opposed to calling outwardly will be considered what people do as prayer. You're calling out for help. Oh, Lord, help me. Oh, do this for this person. Help me. As opposed to meditating and coming inward, we've been taught to express it outward. That would be the concept, the difference in the religion and spirituality. And ultimately, everything that happens to us is based on a cause and effect energy, which cause and effect is something that we all know. As above, so below. As it is in heaven, so it is on earth. Okay, it's the same concept. We learn from each other. We learn languages from each other. We learn how to tie a shoe. We learn how to use a utensil. These are things that we learn as human beings from one another. Spirituality comes natural in the sense that certain things are embedded in us to know that, hey, this don't feel right. This ain't good. This is something I should not be doing or harming another person. But if you're taught under religious construct, that religion has what is done is taken away from your self-reliance and put your faith in the deity that has nothing to do with you at all. It's actually giving the ones who gave you that, them the energy. It's giving them the oversight and the ability to rule over you. As religious holidays are based on cosmic and astrological occurrences, this is why they are able to manipulate the people, because everybody gets on that frequency. Just the other day, Rob was talking about the 4th of July, like that whole concept of us participating in something that generally does not have anything to do with us continues to feed the beast. It feeds them in the way that it gives them power and authority over us in a conscious way. That's what religion is done. Spiritual awareness is freedom. It's not being bound into or being bound in a colonized way or a colonized tradition, but being able to follow your heart, follow your true intuition, using logic, common well-being, and respect for other humans, and love for humanity and nature. Things like yoga or tarot readings that are forms of learning about yourself. Metaphysics is the relationship between physical reality and how it connects to the spiritual realm. Everyone can relate to this being our physical self, and about how this is just, as they say, a shell. Like, this is your physical self and you have a shell. So with that in mind, everyone can relate to that. A shell for what? And a shell for who? If your spirit or your soul is somewhere else already, how can you lose it? And where does it go? And how can you say that you would compromise or lose your soul when your soul is not necessarily in the body itself? It is a shell and something that is motivating the body to do what it does in a conscious way of how we have to make decisions on what we do, how we dress, what we eat every single day. When they say your body is the temple, so we feed the temple with not only food, but we feed it with information. The information that we feed our temple drives us to be the type of person that we are. It creates the character of man. So the character of man is being driven or being manipulated by a force that's outside of itself. Then that force that is outside of it is what is controlling the body to do what it do. Even if you have in churches, for example, religion basically gave man dominion over another man. It is the ability to enslave others spiritually. Yes, I would rather talk to my grandmothers, Sarah Flynn and Ethel Mays Bell, and get their information in a dream or in a conscious state where they can speak to me, personally, and tell me what's going on with me, because they are my blood. That is the blood that is connected to me, and I know them. I am related to them. They are a part of me. That is my spiritual connection to wherever they're at. It's in the spirit, okay? Whether it's a heaven or hell, whatever that concept may be for some others, wherever they exist. But at the same time, when we're talking about this shell and on that level, at the same time, you can look at a child and say, oh, they've been here before. So I would ask, like, at what point did the child stop being here before? At what point did they stop manifesting themselves as this being when they turn 3? Then they not the same, no, they not that same little baby that's been here before. But we can acknowledge that. Or when they die, they say, oh, they're going to heaven, but then you want to wait for a rapture. None of this makes sense. And even if you die and go to heaven and got 100 virgins, you know what I'm saying? Whatever the concept may be, all of the religions on the planet have been used to dominate people and to put a spiritual bondage over the indigenous ones who have already created spirituality, who have already existed in certain realms, who have come and lived a certain life or had a certain experience. And for anyone outside of that to say that, oh, your way of living is wrong, you need to put some clothes on, or you need to not bow down that way, you need to bow down to this or bow down to that. They're actually subjecting us into a form of spiritual slavery. And that is my take on spirituality and religion. And I will take questions and comments at this time. I thank y'all for y'all time, and I appreciate everyone for just paying attention and listening for these few minutes. Thank you.
Hey man, you didn't breathe. You just, that all came out. And that was a real good analysis, man. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go to the panel. Okay, Brother Machinda, what's your take or question, comment?
No comments, no questions. Great presentation, brother. And that's that. Concur.
All right. Brother E.
Yes, sir. I have no question at this time. I'm just observing, paying attention, and learning.
Right, all right. Brother Hembrick.
Hey, Brother DX, appreciate your presentation and the information that you dispersed. I got a question or a comment regarding the shell of the body that you speak of. And I don't know if you're familiar with chakras and all that, and melanin that's inside the body. So I don't think it can be declared as being a shell. With those, are you familiar with those concepts?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that kind of discards that shell of a body concept with me. From my studies, the ba and the ka are in the body. But anyway, something else you talked about the early religions. You were talking about when the Quran was wrote and when the Bible was written, and how we were as indigenous people before the Christians came. But we got to remember that the Arabs enslaved us 1,000 years before the Christians ever came along. So we weren't, we had kind of adopted their thing when we were captured and brought here. Also, it's my, I don't ascribe to no organized religion whatsoever. I hear you with, tapping, the information from the ancestors, and the way I do that is sitting out in the sun with Ra and letting Ra build up the chakra inside and outside my body, so I can have access to those ancestors that you're speaking of that are in the cosmos, is what I call it. But anyway, I also like to end it with this. Well, not end it with this, but us as people, whenever we practice these holidays and all other stuff that we inherited from the oppressor, we actually commit cultural genocide against ourselves by doing that. And last but not least, now these Europeans that came up with Christianity, before that, they were worshiping the Black Madonna and the Child for like 1,000 years before that. And she and him is all over Europe and Russia, France, Poland. I think most of them are in France, but that's what that's what the European was doing, prior to Christianity coming on the scene. But anyway, just appreciate a lot of your comments, and I can relate to 99.9% of what you're saying. And I appreciate it. And let's let somebody else, say something, and maybe you want to come on and share a little more.
All right.
Wow. Yeah, that was very. I will.
Oh,
yeah.
last thing, brother DX. And I have to ask this: when you speak of the Most High, you're not a Hebrew Israelite or anything, are you?
No, man. I'm
Okay.
if anything, I'm closer to a Rasta probably than anything else. That was my first, step outside of Christianity. You know what I mean? But I also study 5%. Also, like you said, I am familiar with the chakras. And I was going to make that a concept like, you got 6 chakras inside the body and 7 chakras outside the body. That's the crown chakra. That's
Right.
the spiritual Christ that everybody can be attaining to. So, the body being shell on that level is the shell basically is what God is what is the spirit is guided. You know what I'm saying? The spirit guides the shell to lead us into what we need to do or to overstand and to have, certain information that can be absorbed into the shell. You know what I mean? Just like we having these conversations of what led you to be on the conversation right now, or to have certain ideas or thoughts, in your subconscious, or what you're able to release and not be bound by, and I feel the energy on the phone. There's a lot of conscious beings on the phone that can relate to not being in a spiritual bondage based upon a religion or a book or certain ideology. That all of these concepts and precepts are basically all the same. It's just a matter of how we perceive them. We all have a concept of good and evil, or right and wrong, up and down, left and right. And for me, I think that's what the basis of our living and our journey is basically all about, is the duality of man, the duality of things, and being able to understand those dualities and live through them. Even if we have this discussion about spirituality and religion, that's still a duality. You see what I mean? We have the duality now. They're trying to figure out who's a male and who's a female, or justice and injustice. It all coincides with our experience and our perception as beings on the planet at the present moment.
Right on.
All right. Professor Rob?
Appreciate what's been said. If I understand correctly, I want to say Asante Sana, which is many thanks to Brother DX for his in-depth thoughts and
real quick, my name
I just have a few questions. And
okay, Rob.
it's not to challenge your perspective. It's just to get clarity.
Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, when you define spirituality and Christianity, it sounds like you're saying they're different. And if they're different, why is there a difference? I know you gave a synopsis, but if it is a difference, what studies say that spirituality and religion is different, if there is any that you ran across?
Yeah. Okay.
Is this your just in-depth thought, or did you have references to substantiate what you're saying?
It's a little bit of both. Okay, so for the most part, it's not just Christianity. I consider Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, all of those to be subjective institutions, in a sense that have been used to manipulate the people. For example, like with Islam, and they're all based on esoteric energy. So yeah, there's a spiritual connection. They are based on spiritual concepts and principles, but how it's being administered in our communities and throughout the world, it has turned into global like colonization on a spiritual level. For example, like I think I explained this before a little bit, but I'm gonna go a little in detail. Like you have the like Islam, you know, they worship on a Friday, which Friday in Spanish is Viernes. This represents the star Venus. So even with their star and the crescent, that's a representation of them giving reference to a celestial body. The Jews and Judaism is worship on a Saturday, which if you look at the star David, it is actually the star Saturn, which Saturn was known as the dark star at one point. So then you have Christians who worship on a Sunday, which all of the holidays and the concepts of what Christianity is based on is all based on the sun and the movement of the sun through the celestial bodies. Even, you know what I'm saying, how the sun moves through the 12 zodiacs is represented by the 12 disciples, or the 12 tribes. Each one of the 12 tribes is represented by a zodiac. Even in the Quran, like you have Abraham and some of the others who represent certain celestial bodies in heaven. And then if you relate it back to what we was talking about, the Black Madonna and child, you know, that's Isis and Osiris. That's the basic principle of what the Greeks stole, because they couldn't really comprehend what that movement was and how that really relates. So they came up with their own stories. Then they used the Black child and the Madonna to represent Isis and Osiris. If you go and look at that information, that would give you the whole concept of the story of the Immaculate Conception, along with how Horus was considered the sun walking on water. Then you had the death of the sun in December, where it died on the cross for 3 days, is represented by a celestial crux in the sky, and also the cross of the celestial wheel, which is a cross in the middle, and then at the bottom you have the sun dying, which is at its lowest point in the southern hemisphere, dies right there in the middle for 3 days, and then when it rises again and it comes up over the equator, we would equate that to the rising of the sun, or the resurrection of the sun in the springtime, which is the spring equinox, where the sun comes up over the equator. And then when it's at its highest point, we just did what we just did with the 4th of July. This is the longest day, where they shoot the stuff up in the sky, which of course is the Star Spangled Banner, but it's also representing the sun being at its highest point. So they utilize these different celestial bodies and celestial situations to get them power, because those were actually our original ways of worshiping. That's why we tend to fall for it, or we can gravitate to certain things, because it is our worship. But when we do it, we're actually giving homage and praise to something else other than ourselves. You know what I mean? When we start internalizing some of these things, that's where we sometimes do internalize. We say, well, I'm doing this for me and my family. I'm doing this for what my family stands for, and for, you know, my own beliefs and my own thoughts, and I'm getting off work and I'm doing me, I'm doing, you know, yeah. But at the same time, I think that in itself, because we are that, they have stolen a lot of this stuff from us and regurgitated it in a way that it benefits them. But yeah, we can take it back, and we should be taking it back. You know, we should be taking all of this stuff back and utilizing it for our own good, because it is a reality about the powers of the celestial energy that is available to us, that we can relate to. The 7 chakras are the 7 days of creation. You got 7 colors, the 7 rainbows, the God, the Guzars de Bois. It's all related. But if we don't make that connection, then yeah, we lose out, and we become slaves to whatever it is they want us to do.
Yeah, but I need to ask you a couple more questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because when are you saying that out of the 83% of the world population and over 4,000 religions globally, that all of them have not played a major role in helping and serving people or even making them feel better about themselves? And if they did, it was by a corrupt means.
Yes, in a certain way, if the good of what they were trying or what they had brought out of humanity served them greater than it served the people.
So you're saying Malcolm X, Fannie Lou Hamer, W.E.B. Du Bois, Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, were all duped by the white man religion? Malcolm X.
Well, interestingly enough, I'm glad you asked that question because I actually had this discussion with a few bishops at one point, like even with a Malcolm X or Harriet Tubman and some of the others that maybe didn't serve Christianity or, you know what I'm saying, even Malcolm X had left the nation and created his own organization. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, even your Frederick Douglass, he was like rebel.
He created an organization of the African American Unity Organization, whereas, but he said, I'm still a Muslim, and I'm still grateful for what I learned. So he didn't give up the business. You know, but let me get
But that's what I'm saying. Those precepts and concepts were embraced in him personally. You see what I mean? He embraced those personally. You see that it created, yes, they can create the discipline behind what you need to do as a human being, but at the same time, those same disciplines are intrinsic within us. Like, you don't need the book to know what not to do or what to do. You see, the book is not for us. The book is for the ones who don't have an internal soul, don't have a contract with the Most High, don't have a contract with Spirit.
But
you see, we got contracts with Spirit.
But most people think that many of the scriptures in the so-called Christian Bible and even in Islam got their knowledge from the ancient Africans who had their spiritual perspective, and they wrote it in the tombs. They wrote it in papyrus paper, on papyrus paper, and they were talking about those things. Even when you brought up Horus and Isis and Osiris, or Osirian or Osiris. That's a story, though. It's just like Jesus was a story, but some people, from the Afrocentric perspective, say that. Let me let Rashid come in, and he has a burning interest in that. I do have some more questions, but we can move on.
I just wanted to interject into that Malcolm was willing to. He had the Muslim Inc. Incorporation as a Muslim preacher or the Muslim, and then he also had what you said, Ra, was the Afro, the unifying program going too. So Malcolm was able to decipher that he even said himself that, your religion is your religion, but we have one common problem, and that's the white man. And so he was able to go across religious lines to deal with a common problem that we had. So
Rashid,
yeah,
he didn't go along. He didn't start out going along with the traditional Islamic perspective. he was following the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And Elijah Muhammad is the first and the strongest challenge to white Christianity. And that's why he called the European devil and the black people gods, and that they are put on earth to do righteousness. But Malcolm didn't start another religion or anything like that. He just said he was going to teach from the Honorable Elijah, what he learned from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and keep on pushing. But that's not what I'm trying to get stuck on, though. See, all religion, all spirituality, all ideologies and philosophies are created by people. And if they're charismatic, they can convince others to join them. And if they're very charismatic, they can get others to put resources in to build institutions or buildings or things of that nature. Most of them try to start out with some moral idea, some ethical idea that you are pleasing, as Brother D. X said, some deity. The first deities among African people walked around on earth. They had deification ceremony, but they did it because these people that they were deifying was essential to the forward progress of the people. So deification it goes all the way back to Africans, and spirituality do. They used to talk to the animals before they killed them, talk to the tree before they cut it down. It's called animism, which means animated, that God was in everything, or spirit was in everything. Mm-hmm. And right. So my point is this, though. People create anything. If you get somebody to believe it, that's the challenge. Now you got the world's biggest religion is Catholicism, because you said it right. They build institutions of service, and they build military apparatus to impose their religion. There's so much Christianity against all other religions. They call them demons. They call them all kind of names, and Islam do the same thing, as well as Judaism. They're all secret societies of God, a religion is who's doing the worshiping. The cult leader is Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is who they believe in, and they worship. They worship, even if he was made up. Even if he's made up, it didn't matter, but they follow him. And many of our ancestors, like the white man corrupted religion, many of our ancestors used it to benefit us. They offered sanctuary for brothers running away. They offered consultation for marriage. The biggest black movement for civil rights was a religious movement, a Christian movement, led by Martin Luther King Jr. and Ralph Abner. He started the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. I'm not saying that people, the same principles that you believe in a religion is the same principles that you believe in spirituality. Now, what is the purpose of believing in spirituality? What does that do? Do it get you in heaven, like the Christians say, the Muslims and the Jews say? Or do it make you live a better life? Do it take you away from those other traditional institutions? I mean, what is the purpose of saying that, as Joe asked you, about the spirit in you, and that first thing they're going to say is, where did that come from? But anyway, go ahead. I mean, what is the purpose?
All right. So the basic purpose is like you mentioned about Martin Luther King, like the fact that they worshipped Jesus and had a complex in their head about who's inferior. of feeling inferior to the point that you want to be like this person or you want to be equal to somebody who is not equal to you. You see what I'm saying? All these deities, like you say, they've been worshiping us as black men, black women. We are the gods. We are the deities that they have deified for forever. The Zeuses, the Poseidons, the Hades, all that is us. You see what I mean? But if you put images in front of people and tell them that that's God or this is who you need to worship, and you worshiping something outside of yourself and giving reference to something outside of yourself that does not look like you, that does not relate to you, then you're always constantly feeling inferior to that entity. The same way like Malcolm X, when he spoke and he was like, hey, we can go across the street. Our diners are empty. Why are we sitting over here getting our head bashed in trying to be equal to somebody when we built the civilizations that they basically took over? Like, we not trying to be equal to these folks. We not trying to be on their level, so to speak. You see what I mean? That's actually belittling ourselves as indigenous people, as original man, and allowing us to be subdued not only physically but spiritually. And when you start to put your deities up, and I put my Malcolm X up on the wall, or my Muhammad Ali, and making reference to people like that, you see, then people like, but they deify their people all the time. You see what I mean? You got the money that is being deified. All that, the Thomas Jefferson, all these guys is on altars. You see, the money, the penny, the dime, the nickel, all this stuff is being deified. These folks are in altars. They're saying, in God we trust to do what? Who's running the country? Who do we bow down to? Who y'all run to when you need some help? You run into these Europeans because you want them to help you to get along, help you to get this, and help you to get that. Not being self-sufficient and relying on yourself or relying on spirit totally in faith that your ancestors and the blood that runs through your veins, not the blood you drinking in church, eating flesh, you see what I'm saying? Creating rituals and stuff behind that. Same way like Islam topping off people's heads. There ain't none of this stuff on the planet right now good for nobody. The Jews then exploited everybody the same way. You see what I mean? They have utilized these concepts and precepts that are ours for their own benefit and made it seem like what they're doing is right and what we was doing is wrong. You see, we can't do the voodoo. If we walk around here with powder in our pocket, people looking at you crazy. But why? You see what I'm saying? We should all be walking around with a powder in our pocket, blowing it on these Caucasians, getting them off of us. They criticize Tucson Overture and see what they did to Haiti. You see what I mean? He just had this man called the Tucson Overture, was like he called on the devil to help him defeat the folks that's beating him upside the head. You see? That whole concept. Like, no, I'm calling on what's mine and who I belong to and who my people are on every level. If it's a Malcolm X, if it's a Harriet Tubman, if it's a Frederick Douglass, they are related to me. I call on all of them because that's who I relate to. That's who my people are. I worship, not necessarily worship, but acknowledge their being and acknowledge their way and acknowledge what they did and how they lived and what they done on a level that relates to me and relates to the people to get us to that next level. So we not sitting in their chairs waiting for them to give us a job. We create our own jobs. We create our own businesses. You know what I'm saying? On that level. Yeah. I don't work for a cracker. I ain't worked for a cracker in probably 20 years of my life right now.
Now
I've been working for myself.
Now, Rod, did he answer the question? Because I'm trying to understand. You asked about what is the reason for spirituality? Was that the question?
It's freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom from white oppression, freedom from white slavery, freedom from white religion, freedom from their concepts and precepts, and creating our own concepts and precepts and how we live and what we eat and how we go about our daily lives. It ain't based on having to run up into a synagogue or run up to the mosque and pray this way and do it this way. No, it's an eternal thing. That I have the freedom to light the candle when I feel like lighting the candle. When I have a dream or have an intuition upon myself and logic to know when to light the candle. When my ancestors say light the candle for me. Put this up for me, son. Put this up for me, son. You know what I'm saying?
Brother DX. So basically,
yeah,
it becomes an individual thing.
Right. And that individual is what brings us all together.
What's that?
Right. And that individualism is what brings us all together. You know what I'm saying? For all the ones that are individual that can see that particular light or see that way of being, then yeah, that creates a unity within itself.
Yeah, because see, I have my personal thoughts about this, and it's amazing how I can relate closely to Neely Fuller Jr. And I always say this. I mean, the way he explains things, and then he come with the logic behind it. And when it comes to spirituality, he has questions about it. He basically say, what is your religion? That's one thing. That's the first question. He says, what do your religion requires you to do? And then you want to know, how does your religion tell you how to relate to him? How do your religion relate to him? When you dealing with me, how do you supposed to act when you dealing with me? So he wants to know basically, what is your religion for, and when you come in contact with me, what do your religion call you to do? And I think that's pretty profound to me. And then another thing about religion, spirituality, and people said beliefs. It's like, when you believe, to me, you're taking the word of somebody else, and you're not having your own foundation and understanding about religion, period, or spirituality. So I know that we're here to learn and learn from each other, but I always take it back and I have to analyze it, and then I have to act accordingly. And then, what is your intentions? Is your, and I'm going to be writing about things like this. What is is your intention to be good, do well, and hope that other people are okay? Do you have I would say, the correct intentions for yourself and your community? And does your spirituality or your religion calls for the same thing? So it's, you gotta, I have to be an independent thinker, because when it comes down to it, right now, I'm living right now, as we know. And so that, if that's the case, I don't know what's going to happen when I pass on to the spirit world. So I got to do what I need to do here and now. So that's how I get into it. How's this spirituality driving me to do what I need to do for myself and my environment? So it's a deep thing. It goes real.
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to interject this, since we're on the subject. It's a quote I got from a Canadian physicist, and which is my belief. I guess you consider me a Gnostic. I'm with nature. I'm with with the Netaru, so to speak, which what the first Twa people worshiped was nature, and then nature evolved into these particular deities that moved up the Nile. And it says, man is the most insane species. He worships an invisible God while he destroys a visible nature, not knowing that the nature that he's destroying is the God that he's worshiping. And it's my belief that nature will show us all that we need to know if we would just observe it. So I just want to end with that comment there. I'm through for the night.
That's a good one, Joe. You said it a few times, and every time you said it's just that much profound. All right, Brother Dia.
I can.
Did you had some more, Ra?
I just What is the difference between believing in nature and believing in spirituality or worshiping the spirit? That's what organized religion do. Jesus is a spirit coming back. Used to
Say that again, Rod.
I said, you mentioned belief system.
Yeah.
People believe what some of these spiritual leaders are religious leaders and spiritual leaders are saying. When you come up with a concept that there's life after death and you want to see your relatives again, you know, for people like Joe who's agnostic, you know, he say, hey, no, that ain't gonna happen.
I said Gnostic, not agnostic. I said Gnostic.
What's the difference?
Nature, I explained myself.
Oh, you're right.
Well,
nature's the same thing. You believe in nature.
Okay.
You know, it's a belief system. Is that correct?
Right. Yes, correct.
Okay.
But when you said Gnostic, people think about no God when you say agnostic.
But well, you did say you believe in another rule.
Right.
And then you know, we talk about Ma'at, we talk about Yoruba, we talk about Hinduism, Buddhism. I mean, there's so many people that get captivated by the ritualizations of the spiritual world or natural world, nature, as you say. I mean, people get captivated by that. You know, yeah, we need nature. I mean, you know, but then again, they, as you said, they destroy nature, you know, with automation, technology. And that's what Jabal was talking about. You know, they say, hey, look, you know, they said the car is the best thing. We all got them, but we're creating pollution every time we drive a gas car. He said, the same thing with fireworks. Billions of people out, millions of people out, many people out, blowing up the sky as if that smoke ain't hurting the sky and the element. It's the same thing with the Native American, the primitive African, the Dogon who saw the stars. I mean, all I'm trying to get to the point is that most belief systems are by people who create the belief system or enhance an already existing belief system. What Brother DX was speaking, for those that read the Book of the Beginning, the Anacalypsis, the origins of religion, the origins of nature, you know, I mean, you go all the way back before there was spiritual gods. You know, there was a lot of different gods. You know, there was gods who walked around Earth, then there were lunar gods, there were sun gods, there were celestial gods. Then they said there's a human spirit. And they come up with stories to support it. Jesus went in a cave and he was dead. When he came back, a rock was moving, he was gone. And he said he's coming back. And the old folks said, if they beat my ass that way, I ain't never coming back. You understand? You know, but my point is that there's no difference. People have their belief systems, and if they're happy with them and it fulfills them, okay. I agree with DA. The European has weaponized religion and imposed, said they was religious while they were enslaving us. And those were Catholics and Jews and Protestants. And then we all learned that Black people learn, watch the game. It's a job for ministers. It's a job, they can't wait to go to work. And, you know, Sunday's payday. You understand? I mean, you know, and all you have to do is just get the bishops to turn their head, and not the bishops, but the deacons to turn their head, and just say, hey, I need this for my house. I need this for a car. I need this. And, you know, give them a couple of dollars, and, you know, it's all about that. The gospel of prosperity versus the gospel of being a better person. But all the thing I'm saying is that as we try to tell people to eat better, and it's hard for people to give up their chitlins on New Year. It's hard for people to give up the wiener schnitzel. It's hard for people to give up pig feet, hog head, cheese, pig tail. It's hard for some people to give oxtail. What the hell are you doing eating the tail of the animal? You know, oxtail with rice, gravy, and all that, you know. Some of us was raised on it. We didn't believe our parents would feed us that. Why did they feed us that? They learned it from the Europeans. You know, you ain't got no oxtail on, you know, in other. But anyway, DX, you're on the right track. I just want to encourage you to keep studying because there are other concepts of getting a belief system with a purpose. You know, most people believe in, many of them believe that they're gonna fly away without airplane tickets, and those and that's okay if it makes them a better person, if it makes them practice morality and ethics and walk in the righteousness of justice and peace with themselves. But for those that are growing out imposing religion on other people, like the Catholics did the Native Americans and the white man did the Africans, just to enslave them. But some of them chose that without the white man. They wake up in the morning and say, God called me to preach. And I said, well, why didn't he tell us he called you? But anyway, some of them use God as a real estate agent. You know, this is that's destiny. God gave me this land. And then they start killing everything on the land to take it.
Right.
We've seen the corruption of politics, law enforcement, city government, state government, federal government. You understand? I mean, you have people that tell that they don't want violence in their country, but they're providing other people with weapons to kill each other. But when you kill one of them, they cry. So I just think you're on the right track. But you got to do a lot more conclusive analysis because people gonna want to know what's your point, what's the purpose? Is it just to tear down religion, or is it to build them a better lifestyle and things of this nature? And how you going to do that through your concepts and your perspective? That's all I got to say about you.
Hey, let me just make a comment right quick. I'll let you, you know, you rolled on quite a bit, but I want to go back to where you was asking me, what is the difference? The difference is with the Netaru, you can see it. You can see nature. You can observe nature. You can analyze it as the days go by. That other stuff is just belief. Now,
That's
some
not
people
true,
say
Joe.
they got a spiritual thing that happened to them.
That's not true, Joe.
Say what?
That's not true. People
What's not
believe,
true?
people in religions, in many religions, believe that God created nature.
I said they believed it. I'm
Yeah.
saying, but nature you can see. You
Well,
see, you step outside and see that right now.
What? That's what they see it. They see they have revelations. They pray when a relative got cancer and they get cured, and they say, "Wow, God did it." They drive down the street and almost get in an accident. Oh, thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
That's what they believe, but that ain't what they see, bro. I'm talking what you see with your eye.
You didn't see the accident?
The accident ain't got nothing to do with what we talking about, brother.
Yes, it do. I'm telling you, religious people see their revelation, feel their revelation. It's not just in the church. It's their lifestyle. They pray for their children. They pray for peace. They pray to get some money. They pray for their rent. They pray and now you say, okay, let's believe in nature. And nature's the same thing. I call on nature to
That's
heal
called,
you. Eat right, sleep right, drink right, and it'll heal you. People get all them herbs and stuff from the nature and say, hey, look at it, get your blood pressure down, and get that, and they still die like a Christian. You understand?
Okay, brother. We got a difference of opinion there, but
I
roll
think,
on with it.
I think, you know what? If I may interject just a little bit, I think I could tie this in a little bit from what y'all both are saying, because ultimately y'all both are right. Because on a like I was explaining, like about meditation, you going inward. You know what I'm saying? And even if you praying outwardly, it's still you have to begin inwardly in order to have that outwardly expression, and that inward cause and effect, so to speak, about how you're going about doing it. It doesn't matter what you acknowledge or who you acknowledge for what it is that you're doing. The fact that you're doing it in a certain way means it's going to bring about a certain reaction. You see, it's chemistry. 1 + 1 is always going to equal 2, even if you call in one ugu and doo-doo. Ugu and doo-doo, you put ugu and doo-doo together, you're going to get baba. But somebody else might say this is 1 + 1 = 2. Somebody else might call the one uno. Somebody else might call the one si or whatever. But it's still the same concept, you see? And that's what we're dealing with. Like, if you just deal with the reality of the fact that this event happened. And I think, Ross, you're right on it when you're saying, like, the aspect of nature and watching nature and what nature does, and how nature reacts to us and how we react to nature is exactly what I'm explaining on so many levels. Like, you can manipulate that nature and say, oh, cuckoo did it. And then everybody around you will say, oh, cuckoo, 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 cuckoo. And everybody's saying cuckoo. But in all actuality, it's just an action and the movement or the way that you went about doing something that brought about the result. The result is still going to be the same no matter what you call it or who you call it. And that's what the spirituality is a freedom. It ain't giving an equation to something outside of yourself. It's coming inwardly and saying, thank you, you know, for allowing me to be in this place and to experience this in this way, and for taking me to where I need to be or showing me what I need to see. You see, on every level, like even if it's nature, like we get to experience nature and watch nature, but how many of us really equate to what nature is doing and apply that in our lives? You know what I'm saying? We dealing with the whole concept of interracial and gender and all these other things. That's nature, but it ain't what they showing us is not nature. You see, nature will show you how we supposed to react and interact with one another. But if you're not following that, then you get contradictions and abominations. And what a lot of us would be like, nah, man, I ain't doing that. We ain't fooling with that. That don't seem normal. That don't seem right. And you can feel it in your energy. You feel it in your DNA. You feel it in your spirit, so to speak. You know, and I'm going to leave it at that.
All right. Well, I think we're going to take our pause after that. It's a continuous conversation. And like Professor Ross said, you know, studying and you know, when people do study, like Brother Joe could record some natural occurrences through the garden, through whatever he sees in nature, and do some studies and come to some conclusions about those studies, and it could be validated. And so, you know, I want to end with this.
I'll ask him, but I don't think so.
I want to end with this. And I think the word, I know Ray Hagen's talk about the word belief. And again, and it's just my analysis. Believing is taking somebody else's word for something. But when you have your own ability to evaluate and see the occurrences happen in front of your face, that means that this is an actuality. This is. That's why I say I have an it is system versus a belief system, because I can decipher for myself what is. And then it's my perception. So I don't have a belief system, and I don't believe it is what it is. And that's how I roll for right now. Now, if it changes later on, I'll let you know. But I always go with what is, logic, all of that. But good conversation and good information. I appreciate it. Professor Rob, we got anybody on Monday?
I'm gonna try to get Reginald Muhammad to come back and talk about the Declaration Conference and on reparations and stuff.
He will be in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
That'll be good, because if I'm able to attend, I will.
All right.
Yeah. And so next week, you guys, we have Benny Tenson is coming back on. And the topic is residents with mental illness at the risk of becoming homeless. So we're going to continue with what he came on with before about the residential facilities for the mentally ill and things that's related to that. So that's Wednesday, next Wednesday. So each one teach one, and Conscious Corner.
Right.
Taking our pause.
All right.
Appreciate everything, everybody.
Yeah.
Hey, Rashaki,
Thanks,
before